Welcome parents, friends, special guests, mom, and of course the rest of the graduating class of 2017. I was going to mention the faculty members in that list as well, but in our 4 years here, they have honestly become more like friends to us, except for Mr. Crawford, who of course, on the very first day of grade 9, made it very clear that we were not friends. During our 4 short years at Morrell Regional High School, we've learned many of our basic life skills. From Miss Compton, we've learned the quadratic formula song, which will be engraved in our heads for the rest of our days. Mr. Wilson, who taught us just how important a comma can be, the difference between let's eat mom and let's eat mom. And let's not forget about Miss McGee, also known as Miss Pham, who taught us all about wagsu and wusu, and of course, her okazaki fragments. I've never seen anyone so excited about cutting open animals. She honestly kind of scares me sometimes. As much as I know all of this information will benefit us down the road, one of the most important things we've learned is that although it's not always wanted, sometimes change is good. And that if we're not always willing to fully embrace it, we should at least be willing to give it a firm handshake or a quick hug every once in a while. We've gone through many changes that we couldn't control, and the biggest being our change into high school from grade 8. And realizing just how different it is from elementary. Our 4 years since have been quite the wild ride, and they've been some that I won't easily forget. Now we're about to experience another big change in our lives, going off to university or college, or just continuing the next phase of our lives. As terrifying as Mr. Crawford was on our very first day of grade 9, he probably gave us some of the best advice as to how that year was going to go. He told us right from day 1 that the school year was going to be apocalyptic, and by all means, grade 9 was a mess. We were no longer the oldest in the school, and our schedule changed every second day. And it was just a confusing mess of how the heck are we managing to get through this, because we're just mulling around the hallway going from class to class trying to avoid the intimidating stares and judgmental stares from the seniors, and just trying to get through the years so we no longer had to be called the minor niners. And when that first year is over, the first chapter of a new book is finished, and the plot has been laid for the second chapter. We were so happy that we were moving on to grade 10. Grade 10 was where things really started to change. We all found our groove, and we started doing courses that would help us work towards what we may want to do with our lives in the future. Many of us started our first year of driving. Honestly, I'm still terrified that most of us are road legal. And we were introduced to Miss Gordon, Miss McGee, and Mr. Murphy, and it was an all-around good year, and everything sort of just fell together. When we finally finished our grade 10 exams, we were burden-free, but the imminent shadow that was grade 11 fell across our horizons. From everything we heard, it was going to be a dreadful year, and so we did the most teens would in preparation. Absolutely nothing. We spent the summer relaxing at the beach, working at summer jobs, and just having fun before school went back in. Grade 11 was hectic, to say the least. It felt like I was drowning in homework, and I'm sure that many of the rest of us felt the same, but we persevered. And although we hit many bumps along the way, for the most part we made it to the end of the year. It was stressful, but walking out of those doors on the last day of grade 11 was one of the best feelings I've ever experienced. We were introduced to Mr. Coffin in his last year at the high school, but he made every class unforgettable, reminding us about Introduction to Poetry by Billy Collins at the start of every class. And I visibly remember how terrifyingly aggressive his podium was as he chased Daniel and Colby around the room with it. He made sure we knew that we were his human meat shield in case of a zombie apocalypse, and if there was ever a fire, he would push us out of the way to reach his escape hatch. And apparently, when Claudio says, "Can the world buy such a jewel?" and play Much Ado About Nothing, Sir Coffin finds it exceedingly hilarious and will laugh so hard that he starts to cry. So I guess grade 11 wasn't all bad. And although it was stressful, there were many great memories made that year. Like when Mr. Crawford, Mr. Coffin, and Mr. Murphy allowed the entire student body to bombard them with water balloons. And finally we come to the final chapter of this short 4-part book. Grade 12, which was a breeze compared to grade 11, which is not a big achievement, but the emotions were no easier. Realizing you're about to have your last class with Miss McGee, Miss McLean, or Miss Compton, or any teacher for that matter, is saddening. I want to say it's easy to move on to the next part of my life, but saying goodbye to such amazing teachers is no easy task. It's been an eventful year, from bomb threats to our recent 24-hour famine, and there was no shortage of laughs and good memories. But recently we've all been getting closer to an inevitable end to our high school careers. We came to high school in grade 9 thinking that the next 4 years were going to be tough and long, and although the years were a little bumpy, the time flew by faster than any of us had expected. And now here we are, about to go into the world and start trying to figure out just what the hell to do with our lives. Some of us will make our way off island to attend university or college, and many of us will stay at home and attend them. And some of us will not go either of those routes. But no matter where our paths lead us after this, we have these 4 short years that we were lucky enough to share together. Looking back at just how far we've come since that first day of grade 9 compared to today is astounding. I've been able to see each and every one of us grow into respectable young adults in our time. I'm proud to call you all my friends. Although we're all going our separate ways, I want to thank each and every one of you for making high school an amazing time for me personally, and I hope you all find what makes you happy and do it. I want to thank both of my phenomenal parents who always made sure I kept my marks up and woke up every morning so I was actually able to attend school, as well as Ms. McLean, who never failed to be overly energetic during early morning band practices, as well as nagging me to get back into band after leaving in grade 10. In my 4 years here, I watched her cultivate an amazing group of people into great musicians in their own right. There's no place in the school that feels as much like home as the band room does, and I'm truly honored to have been a part of our family. I'd also like to thank Ms. Compton, who never failed to say hello first thing in the morning and who was always willing to help you when you needed it the most. I honestly don't think I would have gotten through advanced math and calculus without her. I want to thank Ms. McGee for making biology and chemistry some of the most fun classes I've ever taken. There was never a dull moment in any of her classes, and although her tests were tough, she made up for them with cookies. Mr. Wilson, for always making us look for deeper meanings, even after it seems we've scraped every inch of a piece of literature. His classes were always cheery and fun, and of course I'd like to thank Mary Vincent, without whom I'm pretty sure the high school would be spiraling into chaos. She made every moment at the office into a friendly conversation, and she was always willing to help at a moment's notice. Finally, to the rest of the faculty of the high school, I want to say a huge thank you. You've made the last 4 years extremely memorable, to say the least. You're some of the most supportive people in our lives, and you've truly made an impact on them, and provided us not only with a great education, but an enjoyable one as well. Before I get off stage, I want to remember some teachers who are no longer at the high school because their paths have taken them elsewhere. Mr. Ian Coffin, who we only had for 1 year, but made English class one of the funniest classes I've ever taken. Ms. Mary Leah Doyle, who provided me with a pretty easy ride through geography and French. I honestly don't remember doing any work in any of those classes. Mr. J.D. Farrell, who was always filling the hallways with a song every hour of the day and always had a story to tell. Mr. Matt Kelly for giving us a pretty awesome grade 9 English class. Miss Brenda Smith, she made a mean apple crumble and subsequently is the woman who made me like apple crumble. Mr. Brian Duncan, who I only ever had for music, but that class was always turned into storytelling. We were always learning about his time serving in Afghanistan. And finally, Mr. Joe McDonald, who I think we may have had for all of 2 weeks, but I don't think I've ever laughed so hard in the span of 2 weeks. So now, much like our time here at the high school, my time with you is coming to a close. After today, we are no longer students of Morel Regional High School. After today, we are graduates of Morel Regional High School. After today, we are completely responsible for ourselves. After today, the future begins. After today, the rest of our lives begin. After today, we move on from Miss McLean's band room, Mr. Reed's gym, Miss McGee's chem lab, Mr. Gillis's physics lab, Wilson's English room, Compton's math room, and Murphy's history room. And today, after today, we move on from the hallways that make up the community that is Morel Regional High School. We move on with our lives. After today, everything changes. And even though nothing in the next few years is certain, that's not always a bad thing. David Brooks summed it up quite well in saying, "You know that uncertainty you feel today, it never goes away. The question is, do you know how to make uncertainty your friend?" And so on that note, I leave you all to follow your heart and make out of life the best things that you can. Thank you and good night.